It's a story that happened to me at the beginning of the year in France. A few years ago, I was dating a great man. Let's call him Grant. We broke up because I had to move to begin my training far away from him for my career. It was a peaceful breakup, and we're still very good friends. So are our families. It's kind of funny because he lives where my parents live. For my part, I live in the same neighborhood as Grant's parents. It is a friendly and caring relationship that we have now. I usually spend some time with Grant's parents. In January, I left my house to go to work, but some crazy things happened. Someone wrote insults on my door. My car is scratched. I'm pretty shocked and scared. My blood literally froze. That person also sent me lots of crazy letters. You should know that France's laws are highly restricted. Fines and prison sentences are even harsher than other countries. I was so scared of this kind of situation, so I had to file a complaint to the police. The police quickly found out who the person behind it was due to the security camera on the street. It was an old woman named Claire. At that time in France, due to COVID-19, anyone leaving their home after 7 p.m. without permission was fined for more than 100 euros. The day before, someone had been caught 2 kilometers away and immediately fined. The police asked me if I knew the person who did this. She's a lady in her mid-60s. Her face is unknown to me. So in this case, I was not withdrawing my complaint. I came home from work at night and I did not miss it. I met the crazy Claire in the photo near the entrance of my building. She clearly drank before I got there and didn't wear any mask. I was on the defensive, ready to fight if it was unpleasant. She called me with lots of insults, that I was too involved in a guy's life, that I was trying to separate them. In short, I was the other woman in her daughter's couple. I didn't ask her any questions, and I let her talk, stunned. She even held a knife in her hand and tried to chase me. I freaked out and ran to my car, hid myself in it. She continuously banged at the window and still shouted at me. Furious, I called the police to solve this. The police came really fast and they tried to calm Claire. Eventually, I had to go up to my house with a few men because my presence made her angry and she could kill me at any time. Later, I was told that she went to a van, but they didn't let her drive because she was drunk. A few days later, I got a call from Grant, who told me that he was going with his girlfriend, Grace, with both of the parents whom he'd been dating for a year. We're both friends on social media, and she's a great person. I told myself that he just wanted to see his parents, and maybe we could have a little chat since we haven't seen each other. And I also wanted to meet Grace. When they visited my house, Grace told me that they came for her mother, who was declared demented. Apparently, she almost assaulted someone. Police found a shotgun in the back of her car. A little panicked, I asked Grace if her mother's name was Claire, and she nodded her head. The police and doctors thought she was just crazy and that she wanted to attack me for no reason. But Grace explained that it was because I had spent Christmas with her boyfriend's parents when she couldn't do it. Her mother had taken the news very badly, and she was afraid that her daughter would lose her boyfriend. I'd rather laugh about it than cry. The mother is on treatment. I withdrew my complaint, even though that night was scary, and I was almost killed though. But I felt that it was funny that Claire behaved like that just because I visited Grant's parents. Grant and Grace had to explain to her a lot, but I guess I don't have any guts to go to Grant's house ever again. My family used to settle in a distant area on the outskirts of town when I was approximately 9 years old. My family, like our neighbors, did not have a phone in the house at the time. There were no cell phones back then, or if there were, they were a luxury that only a few people could afford. This took place in the end of the 90s. So, if I needed to call my mother while she was at work, I had to go to my father's office or a nearby company, which was closer, to make a phone call, which I will refer to as Tower 2. Tower 2 was about a 10-minute walk from our house. I went to Tower 2 to make a call one day, like I had done many times before. I walked the stairwell, knocked on the door, and was greeted by a guard I had seen before and knew well. He wasn't alone that day, though. There was a new guy there, perhaps 28 years old. He was apparently a new employee who had been hired to work shifts. He was a tanned white man who constantly dressed in military uniforms. My hair was extremely golden, which made my cheeks always appear rosy red and made me appear even more childlike. That day, when the new guy saw me, he couldn't take his gaze away from me. I'm going to call him the creep. The new guy stepped outside to smoke just as I was about to complete my phone call with my mother. When I emerged, he greeted me with a smile and inquired about my name and how frequently I called. I don't recall saying anything, but I was embarrassed since he was staring me down. I returned to the tower the next time I needed to make a call. He reappeared, but this time he was by himself. I spoke with my mother, and as I was leaving, he asked if I needed any tea, which I declined. He then continued to inquire about my schooling and such matters. He offered to help me with my homework, but I informed him I was done with it. It's not harmful, but it's odd. On a side note, I'd like to mention that when I was near him, I got goosebumps since he seemed drunk anytime he glanced at me, which was quite disturbing. He wasn't exactly intoxicated, but his vision became blurred and his face flushed crimson. I was so terrified that I didn't return to Tower 2 for several days. However, I had to phone my mother urgently one day because my father's work phone was broken. I had to go to Tower 2 in the hopes of not seeing him. There was a creep here, and he was overjoyed when I showed up. He was complaining about the fact that I no longer visit him. He grabbed another chair and sat next to me, very close and smiling, while I was on the phone. When I finished talking, he suggested I take some tea with him, which I declined, and he just kept attempting to build up a discussion, but this time with a different tone. He inquired as to my age, and I replied that I was 12 or 13 years old. I have no idea why I lied that I was older than 9. He informed me his age, and despite the fact I knew he was considerably older, I found it strange that he wanted to talk to me so badly or that he wanted to be my companion. We eventually made it outside, but getting down from the tower required walking down this tiny route to the stairwell. He stood in the way, preventing me from leaving. I panicked when he went so near to me. He drew more and more nearer till he shoved me against the railing. He continued to ask me strange things, and I was afraid to move because I didn't want my body to move against his, if that makes sense. So I simply froze. He asked if I would join him on a date and said he was searching for a girlfriend. He tried to lean in and kiss me. I cringed myself in, and I tried to avoid any touching. Gosh, he even smelt of alcohol. Who drank alcohol during work? I shivered in fear, and that was when I screamed and cried out loud. He was quite surprised, and that was a chance for me to run. He chased after me, but luckily I found the old guard that I knew very well, so I quickly told him the situation. I mean, who couldn't believe a 9-year-old with tears all over her face? The creep just repeatedly said nothing happened, but his face turned red and he sounded ridiculous. So the old guard brought me home, called my dad to tell the situation, and stayed with me until I was feeling better. My dad was so furious, quickly came home and asked me whether I was okay. I told him the creep didn't touch anything, but he was so scared and I cried even louder. I could tell the anger from his face and he promised to call the police. To finish the story, the next day I went to Tower 2 with my dad, as my dad needed something from there for work, and he wanted to meet the guy that creeped me out, maybe to beat him up or call the police. I saw the old guard and asked about the creep and was told that he doesn't work there anymore. I didn't know what happened to him, even though my dad already called the cops to tell the incident, but I wished he could be in jail so other people couldn't be his victim.